You know, we have businesses all over the world and here in the U.S. that, according to the FBI, are just getting nailed. So we'll talk about what that's all about. Atlanta, what's happened there. This ransomware thing's absolutely crazy. Girl Scouts have a really cool new little program we'll talk about. Facebook, they're backing off on even more stuff. Did you know that Facebook was planning on having one of these smart speakers? Well, they pushed that back. And also another warning that I got in a briefing from the FBI is our electric grid and how it is vulnerable. I mean, crazy, unprecedented waves of attack, all of that and more. Stick around, here we go. All right, so welcome everybody here who's watching the live stream. Of course, I am in studio at my flagship station up in Manchester, New Hampshire. And from here, we're broadcasting AM and FM, as well as, of course, on Facebook, which you're watching right now. And then we post this up on YouTube because there's a lot of people who don't want to use Facebook, which I entirely understand. So you got my phone number right there. You can ask questions all week long. When I'm live, they come here in studio and I try and get to them. We're also doing more and more of the webinars. I'm doing the webinars now for the FBI nationwide. So that's really kind of cool. In fact, we'll talk a little bit about that here and just coming up in a couple of minutes. So off we go. Hopefully this is going to work a little better today. I guess we'll see. All right, we are back on the air. We've got Jeremy running the board today, and this is his last day. He's got a family going. He's got a little kid at home. He's got the wife at home. We've got Taylor in studio, who has been helping out in the mornings with Jack Heath's morning drive show. And she's going to be joining us as well. So what do you have to say for yourself, Jeremy? I think that's when you started, yeah. So about 3 years you've been producing it. And as you said many times, it's the best show on radio. You know, well, that's very true. But I thought you wouldn't just say the best tech show. You'd say like the best show. Okay, that's good. Yeah. All right. Taylor, it'll be fun. All right. Well, hey, thanks for all of your service to the station here and the show for all these years. Yeah. And best of luck as you move on here and with the family. One kid, you're off to a decent start. You know, you got a ways to go. 11 months. Wow. Yeah, so it's time for another kid here. You got to catch up to me. Yeah. Well, frankly, you're never ready, but anyhow. Yeah. All right, well, thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. I'm going to get right into an article here on, speaking of kids that are 11 months old, how about people that are older? There's a real problem. If you're designing software for an autonomous car, how do you make that work? How do you make the decisions about who it is that you are going to hit? For instance, are you familiar with the trolley paradox? It was funny because I knew about this and then I saw it on a very funny comedy show called The Good Place. So you might have seen it in The Good Place, but here's the idea behind the whole trolley paradox. You are on a trolley, and remember, trolleys are on tracks, and those tracks are straight. You can't get off the tracks. You cannot force the trolley to jump off the tracks. All you have is the ability to select which direction the trolley is going, and when you're going downhill, there's not much you can do. So let's just say the braking system isn't the best in the world. So you're going downhill. There's a fork in the tracks. One of the forks is heading off to the left, the other's heading off to the right. Just slightly, right? Obviously, you can't go at a right angle in a trolley, right? So the paradox, the problem here is, on one side, if you go to the left, you are going to hit and kill 3 people. But they're all old. They're all in their 70s, 80s, 90s, okay? If you go to the right, okay, I'm not saying that you're necessarily old. 70 is the new 50, okay? Okay, I'll give you that. So on the right-hand side, you have a mother with 2 small children. So you can control that trolley. You can go onto the left tracks and you are guaranteed to kill the 3 senior members of our population, or you can select to go onto the right track and you're going to kill a mother and 3 children. What do you do? It's guaranteed. There's nothing else. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is select, I'm going to kill 3 senior citizens, or I'm going to kill a mother and 2 little kids. Well, that's been an interesting question in ethics for years. I remember this back in college days, and I've thought about it many times over the years. What do you do? Well, this question is now becoming a public question. It's a question that designers of autonomous vehicles have to address. So think about what happened with the Uber car driving down the road. You had a driver sitting there behind the steering wheel, and the driver was paying a relative amount of attention, and the cameras, of course, are recording everything. And if you've watched that video, you know that with your eyes, or at least with the camera's eyes, you could not see what was coming from the left. And it wasn't until it was too late that you could finally see there was a woman who was crossing the road. It wasn't a crosswalk. It was dark at night. She had nothing reflective on. Her bicycle didn't have reflectors visible from the side, and she was hit and killed. Now, from a technology standpoint, we look at it and say, wait a minute, you had on that car multiple devices that should have been able to detect her, particularly the LiDAR devices. Now, I've had the LiDAR guys on my show a few times, and we've talked about their technology, because LiDAR does not depend on visible light. It measures everything, so it should have been looking at it and detecting it. Now, some of the auto manufacturers that are working on autonomous cars, some of them have as many as 5 LiDAR systems on them, so they can see everything, including right next to the car. And some have 5, some have 4. There's even an autonomous vehicle that only has a single LiDAR system. So this is kind of like a laser radar is what it is. So she got hit crossing the street. Now, ethically, who's at fault here? Was she at fault because she crossed where there wasn't a crosswalk? She jaywalked, right? How many of us have jaywalked before? Was the driver at fault? Because there was a human driver there who would have liability in any of these types of cases, because the law hasn't changed. The law still says that there has to be a driver, and I think all 50 states still, although California and Arizona have some exceptions. Was the manufacturer of the vehicle at fault for this? Because remember, the vehicle manufacturer did not make the LiDAR systems. It did not make the software. That was all Uber with the software. Was the LiDAR manufacturer part of this? Should they be sued? How about Uber themselves? How about the company that wrote the software? How about the company that wrote the module for the software that interfaced with the LiDAR? You see how complicated this gets, how quickly it gets complicated? Well, when we get back, we're going to tie this whole trolley dilemma into this whole thing, and we're going to talk about some decisions. A decision that Mercedes has announced. What's Uber doing? What's the MIT lab doing here? MIT lab's got something they're calling their moral machine. So we'll talk about that when we get back. Stick around. A whole lot more coming up. You're listening to Craig Peterson. All right, so You couldn't hear Jeremy's side of our little conversation earlier, so apologies for that, but Jeremy very gracious here as he is moving on. He has 2 part-time jobs basically, so now he's actually going to be in management at a full-time job. So that's good for him, something he enjoys. He helps people that need to get places, people that have physical or mental disabilities. So it's really a great thing that he's been doing. Did you see that whole thing on The Good Place, where they did the whole trolley thing? I thought that was, frankly, that was fascinating, because it brings up so many ethical problems and questions that we as a society have to address. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more here. Did you see your email this morning? All of the stuff that I put out, it's a crazy day. All this Atlanta stuff, some of the new Facebook stuff, the electric grid, Mozilla's new Firefox. Let's talk about that here. We won't get to this on the radio today. But if you want to still use Facebook and you want to be safe, this might be the way to do it. Mozilla has an add-on that puts privacy first when it comes to Facebook. Do a search for Facebook Container. If you're using Mozilla Firefox, which is a good compromise. If you want a really secure browser, use Epic, E-P-I-C. It's definitely the most secure out there, of normal browsers. But Firefox has been doing a lot. So look for Firefox or Facebook Container, and that's going to create a blue-colored browser tab that isolates your Facebook session from all of the rest of your web activity. So it's designed to help prevent Facebook from collecting the sites and the information about the sites that you visit. It's designed to prevent them targeting ads and other messages to you. And if you click a link on Facebook, it simply loads it in a new tab that's isolated from the Facebook Container. And if you click Facebook share buttons on any other sites, then it will load them with the special blue tab as well. So this would not have prevented the Cambridge Analytica gathering of data, this whole scandal. But it will stop Facebook from tracking users outside of its own platform, because you're not going to be logged into Facebook in those other tabs. It's really kind of nice. I like the way they did it. It's a real good, quick workaround. So again, consider using Mozilla's Firefox, which is a web browser, been around a long time. It's gotten a lot better. It's one of the best rated, one of the fastest ones right now, and they've got another security thing out there for you. I guess that makes me the nerdiest nerd, eh? Over on the Facebook Live, I was just talking during the commercial break a little bit about the Firefox add-on to stop Facebook's tracking. So you'll find that over on my Facebook page if you want to watch over there. You can get a lot more detail on how to stop stop Facebook from doing some of the tracking they've been doing. So we're going back now to the trolley. What do you do now if you're writing software that has to analyze the road ahead? Now, obviously, the software right now doesn't know that it's a group of elderly people on one side and a young lady with two of her kids on the other side. That's going to come, right? These systems are going to get better and better and faster, and they're going to be able to Face ID everyone. That's probably going to end up in some government database somewhere so they know who was walking on the streets, just like the government's already tracking license plate numbers so they know where you're driving. But the computer doesn't know who's who. So the computer now still has to make a decision. If you have an autonomous vehicle, and let's say it's in a construction zone and you're between two Jersey barriers. So in other words, you can't steer left, you can't steer right, you have to go straight. And then now at the very end of this Jersey barrier, construction zone, when you come out, you're either going to hit a group with 5 people in it, or you're going to hit a single person. Now that's something it can take into account. Well, let's say that you are driving down the road, the autonomous vehicle is, and now the autonomous vehicle has to make a decision. Do I crash into a tree in order to avoid the crowd of people? And the crashing into a tree could kill the occupant, could hurt the occupant, right? And it's hard to tell. But the computer might be able to figure out the odds of injury. Think of Data, right, over on Star Trek. You know, it's 78% chance of serious injury. So should the computer run into the crowd? Should it hit the tree to save those lives? This is a very real question. A very real question that people are trying to answer right now. Last year, Mercedes-Benz made the announcement that what they are going to do, their priority is to protect the occupant of the vehicle. So in the case of the tree or the people, I don't know. They haven't said what exactly that means, right? Would Mercedes plow through the group of people because the occupant would receive the lowest likelihood of injury, or would it hit the tree because it's almost certain to kill some people in the crowd? I suspect they would hit the tree because it's much better to risk injury to the driver than it is to kill someone, right? That poor driver, can you imagine the psychological damage to the driver? And then, of course, all of the damage to the people that were hit and their families, and it would be crazy. It would just last the rest of their lives. Well, MIT Media Lab back in 2016 launched something they called the Moral Machine. This is a game of ethics, and it presents players with the kind of road choices that the driverless vehicles are going to have to make. And frankly, they're probably kind of already making them, although I don't know that the software is quite there yet to be able to make a kind of an intelligent decision between the two. Yeah, do you want to play a game of global nuclear war, right? The old, what was the name of that movie? War Games, yeah, that's right. So, should a driverless car swerve to save a pedestrian, cross the road illegally, and sacrifice its own passenger, right? That's kind of the extreme. These types of life and death decisions we make as humans when we're driving all of the time. You make a life and death decision, frankly, when you look away from the roadway, when you take your hands off the steering wheel, because you don't know if that lady with the bicycle is about to appear out of nowhere, which of course is a real scenario that just happened to an autonomous vehicle. And these types of decisions are crucial, particularly when we're going to leave the decision to a machine. And believe me, a machine can make this decision. Should a machine make the decision? I can hear it right now. It's a good question. Yes, it should, because it has to. Can it make an ethical decision? Well, that's what the whole thing is. So over the last year, there have been 4 million people. You can find this online. They went to the Moral Machine over at the MIT Media Lab, and 4 million people answered the ethical questions in all of these scenarios that the Moral Machine had on them. So some of the combinations included things like the sex, the age. They had 11 other species like cats and dogs crossing the road. Of course, we've got moose and deer. Yeah, the moose is going to win, so you try and avoid hitting the moose, right? So before this first pedestrian fatality by the autonomous car in America, the professor who was running this, his name is Iyad Rawan, he revealed the first results of the Moral Machine study at a global education and skills forum over in Dubai. So here's what the results said. And this is, again, 4 million people being asked to rate the ethical decision. What would they do, or what should be done? This is the largest global ethics study that has ever been conducted. They're planning on publishing the full results later in 2018. And they're hoping they are going to be used by car makers and other technology companies. But the results were not clear-cut, which is kind of interesting, which means basically morals and ethics vary from person to person, right? So the team found that when it came to simple choices, like between hitting a child or an adult, the results were very decisive, overwhelmingly favoring protecting younger lives. I love the way they put that, right? They didn't say favoring hitting the old guy. They said protecting younger lives. The more elderly the pedestrians crossing the roads, the more disposable they are viewed to be by society. Now, we know this. Remember, I'm from Canada originally. I know they make decisions. I know they do not give treatment as extensively to the senior population as they do the younger population. That's a problem anytime you have government involved in healthcare where there's rationing, right? There's always rationing, whether it's financial or by the government. So now this reinforces it. More mature, more elderly lives are not worth as much, according to this study. But when it came to protecting pedestrians over protecting passengers, the results became kind of murky. 40% of the people wanted their driverless car to plow into the pedestrians rather than harming the passengers. So that kind of ties into what Mercedes was saying about protecting the occupants of the vehicle. Right now, we're not saying Mercedes is going to plow into pedestrians. They haven't said how they would handle that scenario. But 40% of the people that responded. Now remember, it may be a large test, it may be 4 million people, but this is a self-selecting group of people that took the tests. So their opinions might not be, the actual accurate opinions of the majority of people in the country. So the more complex the scenario, the less decisive people were. So in a choice between killing one pedestrian who was crossing the road legally or killing two people crossing the road illegally, the results were pretty fairly evenly split. So to further highlight the difficulties, the moral machine's results also varied by country and even varied by city, by the local level. So, quote from him, when we compared Germany to the rest of the world, or the East to the West, we found very interesting cultural differences. In Germany, for example, where an executive at a luxury car maker, Mercedes-Benz, kicked off a social scandal after saying Mercedes vehicles should save their own passengers as a priority, the results were more often decisive than in the rest of Europe. Yeah, leave it to the Germans, right? This issue has been part of their national conversation for years. Quote, what this really highlights is there are different considerations that we have to take. There are different values that come into conflict, and this really challenges our own ethics, and it challenges us to figure these things out together because we don't all agree. So does this mean we have to have versions of software that vary from locale to locale, from state to state, right? Do we have ethics modules that we plug in? Now, that's ethics. Think about the laws, because the laws vary like crazy across the country. Even the motor vehicle laws vary like crazy, from city to city, county to county, state to state, country to country, continent to continent. So how could an automobile manufacturer handle all of this, right? It's bad enough right now that they have to handle E85 gasoline in certain areas, E15 in other areas, different mixes in California, different mixes depending on the time of year, different mixes in different countries, right? The engines, the fuel delivery systems, everything have to handle all these variables. And then you have hot weather, cold weather, dry weather, humid, you have salt, right? So throw into this ethics. Ethics. Interesting, eh? So here's his summary. If we are to build machines that reflect our own values, then we need to understand those values more. We need to quantify them and negotiate to agree which are the important ones. So I found that absolutely fascinating, as you can probably guess, because I just took a whole segment to discuss it. But we have to discuss this. This has to be part of our national discussion. We need to have debates on this. We need to really understand what we're doing. And the car manufacturers, I think, have to let us know where their priorities lie on the ethical curve so that you can ethically buy a car. Isn't this going to be interesting right now? Because you look at various brands and you see percentages, right? There's one brand that has a very high percentage, I mean crazy high, of female purchasers. There's another brand that has a crazy high percentage of left-wingers that buy it. Another brand that has a high percentage of right-wingers, of conservatives. We've narrowed it all down. Even between Target and Walmart, there are political differences in the people who shop there. That statistically discernible differences, way out of the margin of error. So how about cars? What's going to happen in the future? If Mercedes says, hey, listen, if they said, we will protect the occupants at all costs, we don't care, what type of person buys a Mercedes versus someone that buys car X that says, we will kill the occupant if it saves an ant, right? So it's going to be an interesting 10, 20, 50 years, I bet. It's going to take decades for us to get this all ironed out. And of course, by then, the technology will change and the whole discussion will change. Stick around. When we get back, we're going to talk about Atlanta, what's going on there. You thought they learned their lesson? Well, apparently not. Getting a little bit into the behind the scenes here. The FBI's involvement in Atlanta, the top security team in the country involved, and ties between both of those to right here in New Hampshire. Stick around. We will be right back. You're listening to Craig Peterson. Okay. So, I don't know that we're going to get to this. I mentioned it at the beginning, but Facebook had plans to come out with their smart speaker. So think of Alexa, think of Apple's HomePod, the Amazon Echoes, right, and Google Home, all those different things. Well, Zuckerberg was going to have an always listening device for your home as well. And it looks like it might be a little bit of a hard sell. Can you believe that? People might not trust Zuckerberg, right? Come on, the Zuck. The allegations against the Zuck starting Facebook criminally, they didn't go anywhere. So he's got to be a good guy, right? Well, apparently they were just rumors before that Facebook would be coming out with this speaker to compete with Echo, Home, HomePod, all of those guys. But now they've announced that the rumors, although true, are now going to be delayed. They say it's not the right time to try and sell customers and likely regulators on a new, always listening home assistant video chat device with built-in facial recognition. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that some of the smart TVs have cameras built in, and some of the advertisers were relying on the smart TV to identify the people in the room and to watch their eyes. Were they watching the show? Were they sitting there playing on their iPad or their iPhone or their computer? Was it just on to keep the dog company? Right? So think about what Zuckerberg will do with his always on, always watching home speaker device. It's delayed. Okay, here we go. Back on the air. Hey, welcome back. I've got to mention this because I have to give them kudos. I've complained about the Girl Scouts before. Now they've done something I think is a great idea. A lot of people thought being Girl Scouts was all about selling cookies or camping, crafts, cooking, etc. They've really expanded their program in a lot of different areas. And for the first time now, Girl Scouts nationwide are taking on hacking and cybercrime. They've got a newly introduced cybersecurity badge. So the Girl Scouts, in the US anyways, have teamed up with Palo Alto Networks, which is an okay security company. They're not the best, but why not? They do have a good idea what they're talking about. So they've teamed up with Palo Alto to devise a curriculum that educates young girls about the basics of computer networks, cyber attacks, and online safety. I think that's really cool because, of course, we're all facing some of these problems, right? We're facing the problems of being hacked. We don't know where we should go, what we should do, how we should do it. Why not start out with these young women and help them to understand? Because one of the things the FBI has been talking a lot about lately is the business email compromise, which is driven by phishing, spear phishing in this case. So why not let our girls know about it when they're young, right? They can be CEOs, they can be pretty much anything they want to be. In fact, nowadays they can be anything they want to be, right? There's sex changes and all, but let them know young because they're going to be involved in business. They're going to raise their own family potentially. They're going to need to help their kids out. They need to be safe online. So kudos to the Girl Scouts for doing this. Quote from the CEO of Girl Scouts USA, protecting their identity online, how to protect themselves when they're browsing, how to protect their computers, their family networks from being hacked. Those are the things that are of real interest to girls, she said. And that was from an interview with NBC News. So very, very cool. Glad to see that. Now, this whole FBI thing, this has been really interesting to me. For those, two things, okay? First of all, if you are still using Facebook, take a look. I've got my e-security coach group. You'll find it online at facebook.com/eseccoach. It is a closed group, but for listeners of the radio show, we've opened it up. I'm trying to help really get the word out, get the message out. I answer questions there all of the time. So it's just facebook.com/eseccoach, as in eSecurity Coach, or just look for eSecurity Coach. You'll see me there. You'll also see live streams and other videos I've put together in Facebook on my Tech Talk page right there, Craig Peterson. And I've also got a YouTube channel that we don't have very many people on. I've been starting to post content there. We've really got to get that up over 500 people because that then gets us some ability to do some things. We've got a lot of people on Facebook, but not so many on YouTube. So see if you can find me and follow me, subscribe over there. But going back to what I was just talking about, the FBI has a program. That's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Has a program called InfraGard. Now, this program's been around a long time. I was really surprised to find out. It's been around decades now. And the idea is to involve the private sector, the people in the private sector who are responsible for security for anything that's considered critical infrastructure. Now, that nowadays is a lot of networks. It's obviously things like our electric grid, water systems, but it includes manufacturers. It includes just almost everything all the way down the line. So the FBI has InfraGard, and we get briefings from the FBI, the Secret Service, and others as part of this whole InfraGard thing. So if you're not an InfraGard member, have a look. Every state has a chapter. Some states have more than one chapter. I'm a member of the New Hampshire chapter, which their website is infragard-nh.org. So check it out. It's really great. Well, the National InfraGard, FBI InfraGard, asked me to be the moderator of all of their webinars here in the future. So I'm putting it together. Karen, my wife and producer, has been helping with the guests and getting things lined up. But we're going to be producing all of these with thousands of attendees nationwide. And the information that comes in these webinars is truly invaluable. Again, I really encourage you to attend them, to join the chapter, support the chapter, attend meetings, do all of those types of things, okay? So all of that considered, It's a great honor for, I had calls with the FBI over the last couple of weeks as we talked about what they wanted to do, because this is tightly tied to the FBI, this whole program. So what have they been doing? What do they want to do going forward? What am I suggesting they do? How can things be improved? You know, all of the stuff that you'd expect on a new job, right? It's kind of a job. It's a volunteer thing. I do too much stuff on a volunteer basis. One of the ladies, I brought in a consultant to kind of help me out here with a few things, and her mantra to me is, so are you going to get paid? Because I get paid for speaking engagements because it takes so much time to put together the talks, right, the speeches. It takes over a week of time often to put them together. So anyhow, blah, blah, a lot of good information, and it's important, and I think every business needs it. I'm thinking about going downscale as well. And anyone who's an FBI InfraGard member has had an FBI background check. Now, it's not one of these, you know, crawl up and look inside and see everything that's been going on. It's just kind of a very basic FBI background check. So it's not a big deal if you don't have any felonies on your records and they're not watching you for something else. You can get in, you can join, and I think it's important. So the FBI has really been harping on things like the business email compromise, which is why I just mentioned kind of maybe going downscale a little bit. Do some webinars that are specifically for the general public, as opposed to for the FBI InfraGard members who have the FBI background check stuff. So if you think that might be of interest to you, where we do briefings maybe on a weekly basis or as they come out, let me know. I'm probably going to do some here in my eSecurity Coach group over on Facebook to help people out and help them understand what is happening, kind of be very topical what's happening right now. So if you're interested, let me know. Again, per always, really, you can text me any time of the week, any questions. If you want more information on the group, if there's topics you want me to cover on the show, it's just 855-385-5553. That's 855-385-5553. You can text questions. If you want to be on my reminder list where I send out a text at the beginning of the show, you can do that as well by just texting me with my name, just Craig, to 855-385-5553, and I will go ahead and add you to that list. Okay, wow, it's time for a break, and then when we come back, we are going to be covering the whole problem in Atlanta, and we are going to talk a little bit more about the spread of this business email compromise and what the FBI has to say, and why small businesses are the number one target for criminals right now, even though Atlanta got nailed. So stick around. We'll be right back. You're listening to Craig Peterson. Okay, hold on one sec here. Little throat clearing. I don't have to do that as much as I used to have to do back in the day. A little behind the scenes. You know, for the Facebook watchers here, maybe a year ago, how long ago was it, Karen? I did a tour of all of the studios with everybody, and that might be interesting. Again, if you guys are interested, you can see kind of behind the scenes of what's going on over here at the radio stations. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 more topics that we're not going to get to today, which is part of the reason I was thinking maybe we should do some more live shows and broadcasts and webinars and things. Just get the information out. Get it out. I think that's important. What's that, Karen?
Maybe we need to do your morning things again, where you just do one little...
Yeah, you know, I used to do that. Yeah, I used to do the morning. I went for 3 months last year. This is in 2016. Every day I did a podcast about one topic, what was in the news on the computer, on the security side. And I didn't get a lot of traction, but We should try it again. It would, the
I think
ambition.
we do lives, we make it more fun.
Yeah, doing lives. That's what Karen's sitting here talking to me. Obviously, you can hear a little bit, but yeah, do them as Facebook Lives. Try and do them lives. Just start doing those every day. Yeah, I agree. So after I'm on the air pretty much every day of the week now, when it comes to radio and television, but do that afterwards. Try and have a kind of a fixed time. Maybe do like a 10 a.m. or something, because that would,
Yeah.
because we normally have a 10:30 meeting in the morning, and by 10 a.m. I'm off the air. I'm usually off the air by about 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I'll have to figure it out. Let me know, you guys. Send me a note. Let me know what you think would be best here. So we're going to talk about Atlanta. We're going to talk about the BEC stuff. Oh, this electric grid stuff is absolutely crazy. We'll have to do a live on this one. Got about 30 seconds left. Did you know, in 2016 September, there was a rifle attack on transformer substation over in Utah? And it's just the latest in a string of gun attacks on the physical sites that power the grid. Because all you need is the bullets to hit the transformer, the coolant to leak out, and the transformer's gone. Right? I don't know. Should mention that on here. I don't know. I guess we won't. Okay, sorry about that. Hey, Atlanta. Hot Atlanta. Not yet, but it's getting there. It's warming up in Atlanta. Have you been following this in the news at all? Atlanta was hit by a ransomware attack, and you know, most of the news, they mention it and they talk about it for a few seconds to a minute or two. I had the opportunity to kind of go a little bit behind the scenes here as to what's happening. The FBI got called in, and the FBI brought in Talos, which is the number one, by far, no questions asked, as far as I'm concerned, security group in the world. Talos is amazing. Talos is the group that backs us up. So my clients, for instance, are benefiting from Cisco Talos because they're analyzing a billion plus different exchanges, connections, etc. on the internet a day. The statistics are just amazing. So they're looking for new malware, new ransomware, new business email compromise stuff. They're looking for already known things. They have a team of 200 people that sit there looking at the newly discovered stuff and analyzing it, running it inside sandboxes, running it outside of sandboxes. The way this stuff's set up, even, you know, so this is for my bigger clients, right? Most clients can't afford this, but they can even track it inside of your network. So something gets in, someone brings in a thumb drive, or maybe this is a 0-day attack no one's seen. It comes in through the firewall makes note of it. They actually watch the progression of anything inside the company by watching the network and network traffic through the switches. They watch the machines, something weird's happening here. They can cut that machine off from the network, and they can even back it all out. So right now, the average time to notice there is a problem in your network is more than 90 days. Takes more than 90 days for the average business to detect that there has been a hacker inside the network. With this whole stack that I'm using that includes the Talos people that the FBI have brought in over in Atlanta, when that whole stack is in place, time to notice there's a hacker or that there's malware, and to reverse the damages of any of this malware and to lock the hacker out is less than 3 hours, including reversing the damages. Now, is that nuts or what? So you can see why the FBI would bring the Talos guys in to fix Atlanta. Here's why. Last September, remember WannaCry? It hit hundreds of thousands of computers worldwide. It shut down businesses. It shut down the entire health system in the country of the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, etc., over in the UK. The whole country's medical system was shut down. It shut down the trains in China, San Francisco. Public transportation was shut down. And Atlanta got hit. This was last September. So what does Atlanta do? Oh, okay, well, we got to recover. And, it took them a few days and it took them a week. And, well, after a month, everything was pretty much back to normal, okay? Think what that cost. So what do they do? What does Atlanta do? Do they bring in real experts? Do they bring in people that have spent 30 years plus in the network space, that knows what should be done, knows how to do it, knows who to bring in, right? I can't do everything. I need partners. I need the best in the business. That's what I do for my clients. Does Atlanta do that? No. Atlanta says, no, we're going to do this ourselves. We're going to figure this out. And I have clients. I have Fortune 100 clients that do that, and then end up turning to me after the fact and say, yeah, we got to clean up. That's what happened here. They got hit last September. Atlanta said, oh, we can do it ourselves. We're going to do it ourselves. Yeah. We know what to do. Backups, segment the network. Yeah, no problem. We'll do it. So Atlanta does it, and then they get hit again. And again, it's ransomware. Again, it's flowing through their systems. Again, this was a spear phishing attack. So this is all part of the business email compromise the FBI keeps warning about. So we've got this business email compromise. We've got a city, Atlanta, that's been hacked before, doesn't do the right thing because they're internal people. They know enough. Yeah, we got some certifications. Yeah, we took some classes. But they don't have enough experience. They do the wrong things. They spend millions of dollars, and that ends up with, I'm holding a picture up to the camera for those watching the live stream, with this woman having to stand in front of the cameras, the news cameras, saying, yeah, we got hacked again. Yeah, all of our court documents are inaccessible. So any of you people who are up on charges, don't worry about showing up in court. We're not going to be able to take care of you. If you already have a court proceeding underway, we're going back to manual. It's all going to go paper. Yeah, you can't pay your tickets. Don't worry about paying your water bill. Yeah, nothing's working. That woman was Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, standing in front of a press conference admitting that their people can't handle security. Now, they did the right thing. They brought in the FBI, which you should do, and which I have done before as well, because when there's criminal activity, that's obvious criminal activity, you need to bring them in, and the FBI did the right thing, and they brought in our team. Okay, it's absolutely fantastic. Things started to come back online on Tuesday, and things have been rather slow getting restored. We're not going to have time. We've only got like 2 minutes left here in the show today. Maybe we should do next week kind of a show on the business email compromise stuff and talk about it. This business email compromise is a $5 billion scam. That's what it's worth right now. Absolutely worth. And the number one victim being targeted is small business, because the small businesses don't typically have the security that they need. So think about it. What would happen if your bank accounts got drained? It can take a long time to get that money back, if you ever get it back. By the way, most of the time, the money is never recovered. That's how bad it is, okay? So that's why they go after the small businesses, because they know you cannot afford to be out of business for long. And there's lots of things you can do. We've got a stack that I have found to be very effective that has kept Fortune 500 companies out of trouble. absolutely out of trouble. None of this malware that we're talking about has affected any of my clients. That's how good this is, okay? And it's very affordable now. And you know I've been talking about this for a long time. It's been about a year that I've been working on trying to get the pricing right, trying to get it down. You don't have to go in for a year at a time. But that's what has to happen. We've got to get this happening. We've got to make this all work. The federal regulations, it doesn't really matter. But now we've got big ones, right? We've got the whole new regulations over in Europe that are coming online with penalties in about a month. We've got all kinds of requirements now that PCI is putting on us, healthcare providers. If you have employees, you've got to keep it safe. So I think we should. I want to hear from you. Send me a quick text if you have the ability to do that. Just again, 855-385-5553. Let me know if you think this is worth talking about. I absolutely think it is. This is a scam. It's compromising legitimate businesses. So next week, I'm going to try and go through, I'll bring up a few examples that I know from my clients and others, what's happening and what you can do about it. Anyways, have a great week. Enjoy it. It's not quite the weather we want, but you know, when is it, right? I'll be back Monday morning with Jack Heath right here at about 7:40 a.m. Have a great week. Take care. Craig Peterson. Till next week. All right, so that was it. I'd love to hear from you guys. Make sure you give thumbs up to the video as you're watching it and share it with friends. This is all great information and we need a lot of people to get this stuff. Anyways, have a great week and we'll be back probably this week. We're going to try, I think, and do some of these daily lives, little live reports. Take care. Bye-bye.